Something unfortunate that I typically have to encounter as a NBA media news YouTuber is whenever a crazy report like this comes out and I make a video about it, I have to make a video about it because it's something that's out there in the space by a reputable source, but a lot of my subscribers and a lot of members of Mike Mafia assume that I'm passing it off as fact, which I am not. What we are doing here today is a deep dive on a story that could be true, but also could potentially be fiction. And I'd like to think we've done this historically with great success, and it's led to some great things. For example, the toxicity that occurred with James Harden in the Houston Rockets before he ended up getting traded is probably one of our best videos that we've done over the past year. And I'd like this video to be very similar to that. But in case you guys clicked on this video for the wrong reason, I'm just gonna let you guys know within the first minute that there is absolutely no way, shape, or form, no matter how upset Luka Doncic is, that he will not be a Dallas Maverick for at least the next 2 to 3 years, at the very least. And to be honest, it's more likely that he's gonna be a Maverick for at least the next half decade. Despite all of this, guys, unfortunately, there will be a select few individuals that will go straight to the comment section to comment on the video, thinking they know what this entire piece of work is about. So for me to actually know that you watched the video, do me a favor and start your take in the comment section with, according to Mike, Luka won't leave the Mavericks, but, and then give your take. Now, before we get to everything, I wanted to let you guys know I'm giving away a pair of Apple AirPod Maxes. The winner is going to be announced tonight. All you have to do to make sure you're in the giveaway is go to my Instagram, follow me, go into my stories, and make sure that you vote on that poll of if you want to win a pair of Apple AirPod Maxes or not. If you could smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, I'd appreciate that as well. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So I am going to repeat what I just said. There is no chance Luka Doncic is not a member of the Dallas Mavericks this year or over the next 5 years. This is a guy, I think this is the first player ever that could qualify for a Supermax contract extension before he even hits restricted free agency. That's nuts. I've never seen something like this before. Probably the closest thing we've ever seen to this is when Derrick Rose was able to win an MVP within his first contract in the NBA while he was on a rookie scale contract. And it's without a doubt that the Dallas Mavericks have absolutely hit on Luka Doncic here. He is a transcendent talent that has the potential to be the new face of the NBA over the next generation. He could put basketball on the map internationally, considering how he came from the EuroLeague and he's Slovenian as well. And we've discussed this topic at length before, the concept of a general manager and a basketball team doing whatever it takes to put a good core together around a star player, but the moves don't necessarily pan out. And the number one example we typically use once we cite that is Kyrie Irving and the Boston Celtics. You know, they traded Isaiah Thomas and a first-round pick for Kyrie Irving. Isaiah Thomas was a shell of his former self. He was dealing with injuries. Kyrie Irving wanted to be traded away from Cleveland, and he was definitely a good contender to be the new face of the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. For one reason or another, for things that were unforeseen, I'd like to say outside of the game of basketball, more to do with personalities, it didn't work out. And in the case of the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic, I'd like to say the same thing. Trading for Kristaps Porzingis, in theory, was the right decision. They didn't have to give up many players at all whatsoever in order to acquire a young all-star to put next to Luka Doncic. You also got Tim Hardaway Jr. in that deal. But unfortunately, when you lose in the first round 2 years in a row, while technically twice in under a year, and the same team is holding you back and it appears as though your team is stagnating, well, sometimes you're prone to, I guess, having these little expose articles written about you. Now, it's really important to note that Mark Cuban actually responded to this article. We already know his stance on it. And historically, I'd like to say that Mark Cuban has always been very open and honest about his perception of his team. Like, to give this man credibility, he came out and said straight up that Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic don't really hang out and watch movies together, but he expects that relationship to improve down the line. This is a man that actually sometimes overshares way too much. So whenever he suggests something, I am probably going to take his word for it. Now, the source of this video comes from Sam Amick of The Athletic and Tim Cato. You see what I mean? Very legitimate sources. That's why we're making this video. And it's called Inside the Dallas Mavericks Front Office, Mark Cuban's shadow GM is causing a rift with Luka Doncic, which it sounds the way it sounds. Apparently, there's some guy behind the scenes, not Donnie Nelson, not Mark Cuban, that is making a bunch of the moves for the Dallas Mavericks, and Luka Doncic does not like it. And the way the article opens was that in early February, during a game versus the Golden State Warriors, Luka Doncic turned the ball over and received feedback from a Dallas Mavericks employee that he didn't care for, a man by the name of Haralabos Vulgaris, who is a well-known sports gambler hired by Mark Cuban in 2018. So right off the bat, this is what we're going into. There is a sports gambler that is apparently running the show for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, bear in mind, again, I'm going to preface this. Take this as you will. It could be truth. It could be fiction. Take it the way you want to take it. So Vulgaris, apparently in this incident, is sitting with an open laptop and is trying to communicate to Luka Doncic that he needs to calm down, which Doncic snaps back saying, "Don't fucking tell me to calm down." Vulgaris said that he wasn't trying to signal this to Doncic, but the fact that Doncic interpreted it as such just gave you an idea of how toxic things are between the two. The article then says in its third paragraph that Doncic fully intends on signing his Supermax extension, which he's eligible for because he is on the All-NBA team this season. But despite this, the Dallas Mavericks recognize that there is an urgency to build a contender around Luka Doncic as quickly as possible, because if they don't, then obviously they can lose him. So far, based off of these first three paragraphs, I'm going to be honest, this all sounds like very legitimate stuff. I automatically assume this was the situation, minus the sports gambler running the Dallas Mavericks, but this is what I assumed was going on in the Mavericks organization. There's this urgency to build around Luka Doncic, a player that has really fulfilled his potential super early on in his NBA career, and the Dallas Mavericks have taken swings. They've traded for Porzingis. They traded for Tim Hardaway Jr. They are doing whatever they can to try to build a contender around Luka as quickly as possible, because they know if they don't, they could lose him. Even if it is after 5 years, they would prefer Luka would be a Dirk Nowitzki type of player, which then brings the concerns in regards to Luka Doncic not having a good relationship with multiple key members of the Mavericks franchise, including this sports gambler shadow GM by the name of Vulgaris, which could impact his desire to remain in Dallas long term. The article then cites the fact that Luka lost to the Clippers once again was an indictment against the Dallas Mavericks construction of their current roster, and then gives some sort of urgency stating, can the Mavericks fix what's going on in time, or will Vulgaris end up alienating the Mavericks' ability to keep Luka Doncic long term? Which, let me briefly interject here, that part smells like BS to me, because if you clearly are having an issue between Luka and this sports gambler, if he does even exist, if this truly is even his role, which Mark Cuban already came out, and we're going to get to Mark Cuban's take later, but Mark Cuban already has reservations about this article. Well, you'd think that after a year or two, when Luka is getting closer and closer to his ability to be a free agent, the Mavericks would say, okay, Vulgaris, you're clearly not working out here. We got to give you the boot. The article then introduces Vulgaris' official title, which is Director of Quantitative Research and Development, which vastly understates his role according to The Athletic. Vulgaris apparently is the most influential voice within the Dallas Mavericks front office, and his powers range from either initiating or approving virtually every transaction made over the past 2 seasons, and apparently has gone almost as far as scripting the starting lineups and rotations for longtime head coach Rick Carlisle. So this is a guy that has a ton of power in Dallas, apparently. And since he was there from 2018 until now, that is the exact same time that Luka Doncic has been in Dallas. The article then emphasizes that Donnie Nelson was the main reason the Mavericks drafted Luka, and Luka was there for a little bit before Vulgaris came along. And the reason why Mark Cuban seeks Vulgaris's console in terms of basketball is because he was won over by Vulgaris's analytics-driven, spread pick and roll offense with Luka Doncic as the focal point, which he has attempted to implement over the past couple of seasons. Again, this is another thing that I think kind of smells like BS, because believe it or not, Mark Cuban has a really good brain for basketball. He actually understands the X's and O's behind what's going on. For example, look at the way that Mark Cuban describes the Dallas Mavericks strategy in the 2011 NBA Finals against LeBron James and the Miami Heat.
And that's a complete insult to us to say, you know what, the adjustments that we made.
What did you do to force him out there?
We had like 6, 7 different types of matchups in our zone, right? And we played man-to-man, and we had a variety of different switches, right? So we knew that 90% of his shots were going to come from the left-hand side, right? We knew that if you gave him room from the left, he was going to drive. Now, we didn't have the athletes that Oklahoma City did, so we had to plan differently.
Sure.
So we need to make sure that we pushed him out away, and then we gave him different looks every time he had the ball, because just forcing him to make a decision, right, to think about what he had to do, taking the time to read, are we in a zone? What type of zone we're in? How are we matching up? What type of rotations are we in? Making him think made them pass the ball around the perimeter, which gave us a chance to adjust, right? Now, they're smarter, they're a better team this year, they deserve to win this year, but, you know, that's the way we played it. And so it wasn't just LeBron. LeBron actually played it right more often than not. He made the right pass to the right guy who didn't make the right play. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to get the ball out of their hands and into the hands of somebody else. We wanted him to play Michael Jordan and make somebody play Steve Kerr.
The article then continues to give you details about where Vulgaris' gambling background stems from, how he was the driving force behind the acquisitions of Seth Curry and DeLon Wright. He wanted DeLon Wright to start right next to Luka Doncic, but inevitably he ended up getting relegated to a bench role and would get traded that offseason. A lot of members of the Dallas Mavericks supposedly were confused about who's the real general manager between Vulgaris and Donnie Nelson, because although Donnie Nelson was the team president of basketball operations since 2005 and was responsible for trading for Kristaps Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Richardson, and JJ Redick, Vulgaris had this one instance where he already drafted Josh Green and Tyrell Terry, despite disagreements that he had with the scouting department, and the scouting department apparently didn't even know. The article then briefly touches up on how Luka Doncic doesn't like Vulgaris because Vulgaris left in one game when the Dallas Mavericks lost to the New York Knicks, but he would leave with 45 seconds left in the game, with the Dallas Mavericks trailing by 10 points at the time. And apparently this rubbed Luka Doncic off the wrong way, and that's another reason he just doesn't like Vulgaris apparently. The article then concludes with the fact that the Dallas Mavericks don't appear to be making great changes to the front office, comments on how Mark Cuban is content with Vulgaris' role. When reached for comment on Monday, Mark Cuban stated that he really likes what Bob brings to the table. He does a great job of supporting Rick and the front office with unique data insights. Cuban also added that Bob has a great grasp of AI and the opportunities that it creates for gaining an advantage, which is important to him, but he isn't any more influential than any other data source on the team. The article also begins to try to create some sort of scare because, well, Rick Carlisle isn't going to get fired, and the Dallas Mavericks don't appear to be making any changes in the front office, and it concludes with asking whether the Dallas Mavericks could fix what's going on before Luka Doncic gets alienated and leaves the franchise. Mark Cuban's reaction was very simple. He just went onto Twitter and just said, "Total bullshit." After reading this entire article and making a nice video for you guys so you don't waste any time on the article, I'd have to agree with him. Some of the things that are proposed in this article just sound absolutely ridiculous. It's trying to create urgency that the Dallas Mavericks might lose Luka Doncic after just his second year in the NBA. Obviously, a change needs to be made, but I don't think it's so bad for the Dallas Mavericks that they might lose Luka, and I don't even see a way that they could lose Luka. How do you lose a player that is literally about to sign a supermax contract extension for 5 years with your team? It just doesn't make any sense. Regardless, I found this article to be very entertaining, but I honestly don't think it's that legitimate, but maybe there are some things in the article that I didn't see that you guys saw. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.